2006 BMW 530 Xi starter replacement. I'm Brian Essen from How to Automotive. I'm going to walk you through that process. Okay, to get started we need to disconnect the negative battery cable. So we're going to open up the trunk here. You're going to take your floorboard and you're going to pull it up, and then they have this little hook. It's right here. You just hook that out of the way up on the weather stripping there. Now you're going to take out two clips. They look like this. There's going to be one here and one right here on the right side of the car. Then you're going to take the floor panel out from the bottom, the side panel I mean, and then you're going to remove the 10mm or loosen the 10mm nut and wiggle your battery cable off and tuck it down on the side of the battery. So the starter on this car is underneath the intake manifold, so we need to actually, we're not going to remove it out of the car, but we're going to unbolt it and pull it back. So to gain access, we're going to remove the air cleaner first. So we're going to start by removing the Torx that go here and here. Remove those two, and then we're going to loosen up the hose clamp for that connects to the mass airflow sensor. Unplug the mass airflow sensor. Okay, so now that we got the air box out of the way, we need to get this engine cover off, but to do that we need to get this whole cowling piece off here. Okay, we're going to start by just lifting up on this cover here and set that aside. Then you want to pull the weather stripping out and just set that aside. Now we need to get this clip off, this large clip here that holds the cowling together. On the back side there's a little thumb tab. You will lift up on the thumb tab and pull it forward and lift it off. So now we're going to get our cabin air filters out. There's one on each side of the cowling. So what you're going to do is you're going to pop this clip off here, and right here in the front you turn this a quarter turn. Clockwise locks, counterclockwise unlocks it, so you can pop that out. And you're going to remove both of those and set those aside. On the passenger side they have the sensor for the hood and the ambient air temperature sensor. I leave them hooked up. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to pull this, just kind of set this out of the way and set that aside. Now now right here by the strut tower there's a Torx bolt here. I'm going to remove that one, and there's the same on the opposite side. There's another one just like it. Remove both of those. So now on the driver's side you're going to take these lock tabs and turn them clockwise a quarter turn, and there's one here in the center of it. You'll turn that counterclockwise one turn, and it may be kind of stuck down, but you have to pry it up. So you pry it up and then work it out like that and set it aside. And you'll do the same thing to the passenger side. Loosen the tabs, lift it up, and pull it out. And then after that, we're gonna take these little clips here out here to hold the wire loom to the strut tower bracing, and we'll take those out. So after getting those off, they'll just pop off the strut tower like that, and we're just going to leave everything just hanging there. And then now we're going to take the cover off. All right, to take the cover bolts out, you just take a Torx, put it in there, and you just twist it. And they're kind of like faux. They're not really screws or anything. They're kind of like these little, I don't know what they call these, but they fasten it down. So go ahead and take those out. There's like 4 or 5 of these here. Whenever you need to get to, go ahead and take those out, and then once you get all those out, the whole cover will lift out and slide out. So now we're going to unplug the oil pressure switch here, and we're going to remove the 7. Let's see, there's going to be 4 bolts and 3 nuts on the intake here. So we're going to remove those. They're 11mm. So take all those out, all the way to the back here. You have to just kind of pry this PCV hose out of the way a little bit and take that out. So you'll take all those off, and then after that, we're going to take the studs out here, these 3 studs. We're going to also remove those, and I'll tell you what tools they are when we get there. We're also going to go ahead and disconnect the fuel line right here. And the way you do that is you actually push it forward this way, and at the same time you push this little clip that's on there, push it inwards, and that releases the tabs, and then you can pull it off. So after you get the fuel line disconnected, in behind the underneath where the fuel line was, you lift it up. There's a 10mm bolt here, and then on the opposite side, where you can see my ratchet, my extension is going through it, and there's a 10mm bolt there. you'll take those two out, and then this little clamp that's holding the going over the fuel rail will come off. Okay, next we're going to take a E6 Torx bit, put it on the ends of the studs, and remove the three studs. Okay, before I get too carried away, I'm going to take an air blower like so and blow out the channel right here. After removing the studs and blow that out, and so now that that's all cleaned out, now you can pull the intake manifold back. Okay, so what I did after I put a hood prop rod on, and I pulled my intake manifold back as far as it'll physically go. And what I also had to do is I had to remove the power steering reservoir, the two 10mm bolts, the nuts that held it on, lift it up and just kind of tuck it over here where the air cleaner used to be. And then I hooked through the bolt hole. I hooked my tie strap, and I hooked it to the hood latch, and I just pulled it back until as far as it can go where I'm comfortable, where it's not going to break anything or stretch anything, and pull it back as far as you can. Now what you can do is you can reach in there and you can unbolt your positive cable to the starter, and unplug the igniter wire to the starter. And with an 11mm wrench, 12-point wrench, what you do is on the back right through here on this hole, right down there, you can reach down there and you can get to the top bolt of the starter. So on these BMWs, they have one time use only bolts, so they're the Torx bolts, but the 11mm wrench will fit perfectly over this, and they don't have a ton of torque on them, so you can break it free by sticking your hand down here like this. Let's see if I can do it. You can get your hand down there, and you can get it right on the back bolt, and the bolt comes from the transmission inwards towards the front of the car. So the bolt on the starter is going to go this way, and you can get to this bolt, and once you crack it away a few times, then you can spin it out with your fingers. It's really comes out easy. And once you get to there, I'll show you what to do next. So the starter bolt comes from this way, so this is the new starter. So it's going to be like that inside the car, and the transmission is going to come from the transmission side. So like I said, you could reach over the top, crack this bolt free, and it'll spin out really easy. Just as easy as spinning that out right there. It'll come out. Okay, so I got my wrench on here, so so you can see where I'm coming from. So you see the intake, you follow it down to the back, and on the back side you can see my wrench right down there on the starter bolt, and then I'm going to reach my hand right through this hole, and you can see I get my hand on there, and I can actually turn the wrench and turn the bolt free for you. Not for you, but so that's how you get to the back bolt, and then once you get it free, then you can just spin it out by hand. So after getting the upper bolt out, now you're going to take an E14 female Torx here bolt, and you're going to put it underneath the intake here and go underneath the starter. And what I like to use is like a semi-wobble extension if you have them, and that helps kind of get them on there. And then you can I've actually gotten air ratchets down there and cracked them free. They're not very tight, but if not, you can use just ratchet. You can get your hand down inside there and break the bolt free. And once I get this on the actual bolt, I'll show you. Okay, so you can see my extension going underneath the starter. There's the starter, and it's going underneath, and I have an actual shorty 3/8 drive ratchet there that I was able to break the bolt free. Like I said, they're not very tight. They're just so now you're just going to take the bottom bolt out, and once you get the bottom bolt out, you'll work it up through here and through this, right through this hole right here on the intake. You can actually snake it through there. So as you can see, the starter's coming out through here. So you have a little bit of this intake will move and wiggle a little bit, so you'll have to kind of move it a little bit or whatever, and then this will come out. The old starter will come right out, and then the new starter will go right in the same way. Okay, so after routing your new starter back through and pretty much in place, you want to take your new bolts And what I like to do is I take a little piece of paper and I stuff it in the socket, and then I stuff the bolt in there, and literally you can wiggle it around and and it won't fall out. So you actually want to do that, give it a little test like that to make sure it's not going to fall out. And then you can put this back underneath and start the bolt. And what I do is I run it in until it's snug, and then I'll start the top bolt, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. And I'll run the top bolt in and tighten the top bolt first, and then I'll tighten the bottom bolt. So after starting my bottom bolt down there, I run it up until it's snug, and I just leave the setup in there until I get, because I'm going to tighten that last. I just do it until it's snug. So then what I like to do next is take the new bolt and put it in my left hand like so, with my fingers like this, and you're going to tuck it underneath the transmission and then pull it into the bolt hole like that, and then once it's in there, then you can spin it, and then you can tighten it up, and you'll tighten it all the way up until it, go ahead and just tighten this up. Okay, now that your bolts are in there tight, so when you tighten it, run it up to all the way to a snug, and then just like just a quarter turn or so. That's all you need. These bolts aren't very tight. It's like almost impossible to get any type of torque wrench or anything in here like this. So you just run them up to their, till they're tight, and you just keep in mind that they're made out of aluminum and they can break, so don't over tighten them. And after you get that tight, now go ahead and put your battery cable back on, and your wire, for the igniter wire for the starter. Go ahead and plug those back in, and then after that I'll show you how to prep the intake to go back on. So the intake manifold gaskets are just these rubber O-rings like so. So you just pick them out and then put your new ones in. Once you get that all done, then what you want to do is kind of just look down the ports, make sure no debris fell in the ports, and if anything fell in, go ahead and fish it out. And then after that, you can go ahead and take off your setup here, and go ahead and put the intake back into place. And I like to start the two corners, the front and the back corners bolts first. And then after I get those started, I'll put the studs back in. So you have to put this bracket back on too. So what I'll do is I'll put this bracket on, and I started one of the inner bolts here first, and then the corner bolt here. Now I'll put the studs back in, and then once I get the studs back in, I'll put all the other bolts in, and then I'll put the 2 10s that went in this bracket here, put those in, andLl tighten these first. And then after I tighten those, then I'll start from the middle bolt. So I'll torque this bolt, this bolt, this bolt, and so on, and work your way from center to out. So you're going to torque all the 11mm nuts at about 12 foot-pounds, 11 to 12 foot-pounds. So you'll start with the middle. So you go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So after torquing all the bolts down, we just need to take our fuel line and just slip it over like so, and you push it on until you hear it click, and you give it a pull and it won't come back off. And then you want to take your oil pressure switch here, plug that back in. Now we can put our air cleaner back in. So we'll tuck it in here and start the bolts. Also, I took the power steering reservoir that I already went and put it back in, and we'll tighten these 2 bolts here that it went in. And then we'll put our air cleaner back in. Okay, now that we got the air cleaner back in and bolted up, and the boot clamp retightened and the mass air hooked back up, now what you could do is you could put your negative battery cable back on the car, on the battery, and tighten it down, and give the car a start before you put it all the covers back on. And you could check for vacuum leaks, fuel leaks, anything like that, and make sure the starter works. You could do that now at this time. And if everything checks out, then you proceed to put the cowling back on, the covers back on. So after starting the car and everything checks out, go ahead and put your top cover back on. These just twist a quarter turn to the right, clockwise, and then go ahead and put your wire loom back on and the clip to hold it on. And then we're going to put the passenger side cowling piece on first. So you'll tuck this in first. You'll take this rubber boot up, tuck it in first right here, and then as it goes down, then you'll lock the 2 tabs here and here, lock that down, and then put your rubber boot back in position the way it came out. So after that, you'll put your cabin air filter. It just tucks in here, goes down, has the lock tab in the corner, the clip that flips up, and then you'll also put the torque you took out right here next to the strut tower. So after slipping the driver's side panel back in, lock it down, corners, like that, and put your torque in here, and then put this rubber boot that comes off. It just slides in there underneath the it slid in underneath the wire loom here and behind underneath, and just you'll know when it's all flush and flat. It doesn't really clip on, it just kind of lays in there. And now we'll put the cabin air filter, we'll slide that in and then lock it down with the tab here, and then the tab in the corner. When that's done, you'll lock the tab in the center. So lock that down, and then we'll put the weather stripping back on. Actually, before we put the weather stripping back on, we'll put this piece on so it just kind of fits in the groove like that and just pushes on the locks. That's it. Now we'll put the weather stripping on. So we'll put that on now. So now we're ready to clip this panel on right here after putting our weather stripping on. So we'll put this one on, and it just slides into little grooves and locks into place. So the estimated book time for this whole job was 3 hours. By pulling the intake back like that and not removing the whole thing, you could probably do this whole thing in about an hour and a half, hour and 45 minutes. And actually make some pretty good time on this. I'm Brian Essick from How To Automotive. As always, it's my pleasure sharing my experience with you guys, and I'd like to thank you for watching my videos and remind you to subscribe for more valuable videos like this. Thank you again.